Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are back once again to bring you a PLE predictions video. This time, we are bringing you the first of two. Of course, WrestleMania 42 will be separated by Saturday and Sunday, night one, night two. For this video, we will just go through WrestleMania Saturday match card, all 7 of the 13 matches. Per usual, we'll go through every single match in an order that makes sense, some of which have already been confirmed. But yeah, we'll go through, kind of give you our thoughts on each one and kind of let you know where our head's at and prediction wise. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the first match of the evening, which has Logan Paul, Austin Theory, and IShowSpeed going up against the Usos and LA Knight, which, as announced on Raw, will kick off WrestleMania Saturday. So, KP, what's your prediction for this one?
Yeah, starting off with a 3-on-3 tag match. We've got IShowSpeed going into his first, I guess, official match, unless you count the Royal Rumble from a couple of years ago. But in terms of how I think this one's going to go, it's an interesting choice to be an opening matchup. And what I will say is that it's been quite in favor recently of the Vision, obviously defeating the Usos to gain the tag team titles. I could see them sort of, maybe going the other way on the WrestleMania matchup with maybe the faces going over, just to sort of like give them a little bit of momentum, sort of like going out of WrestleMania and then possibly, trying to challenge back for those titles, I would probably say, because obviously this is a non-title matchup being 3-on-3. Yeah, I think that makes more sense, gives each of them a victory, gives them the next step for what they can do. I don't really know what a win for the Vision and show speed would actually do for them, except for obviously just keep the momentum high with the Vision. But yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna go with the team of Jay, Jimmy, and LA Knight here. I think it makes more sense, and I think it just think of the long picture going after WrestleMania. I think it's just a bit more logical than the other three winning. What about you, Nick? Are you looking forward to this one? I think it could be quite fun, to be fair. You're that surprise element in IShowSpeed. What is he going to bring to the table? It could be quite interesting. But yeah, what are your thoughts on how this one's going to go and who do you think is going to win?
We kind of hit on the if we're being honest episode that this kind of whole thing was trying to make the best of all the injuries and such, and the Vision here, definitely not what they used to be. But as I said, kind of in the weekly recaps, I'm looking forward to IShowSpeed like getting more of an opportunity. Obviously, we've seen a little bit of him, but I think he has a ton of charisma and clearly is very athletic. So yeah, looking forward to his kind of showcase here, if you will. But I think because of where it's at on the card, I think similar to what you were thinking, I think LA Knight, who doesn't have a great track record either, I think probably best for them to get the win, especially because it's leading off the show. The Vision will recover. They can, make up some excuse that we won't care about in, 2 seconds later. So, yeah, I think this should be an entertaining contest, though. But I do think LA Knight and the Usos are probably going to win here and probably the right choice as well. So, without that, let's go ahead and get to the next match of the evening, which has Jacob Fatu going up against Drew McIntyre in an unsanctioned match. The rivalry for this one, as we hit on in that If We're Being Honest episode as well, has been plentiful and arguably one of the best of the weekend. KP, any chance this match can live up to that hype? And who do you have coming out of this one as the winner?
I think there is a good chance this one will live up to the hype. They've brought such a crazy amount of intensity into the feud so far. And I can't see that really slowing down, going into the matchup and just sort of like seeing how that transpires. You got your unsanctioned sort of stipulation here, if you will, which sort of allows these two to go absolutely crazy. So yeah, I'm excited for the matchup. I can't wait for it to, guys that are absolutely killing it, to be fair, brilliant in their own rights. I would probably say that in this matchup, I would actually love for both of them to get a win, but obviously we know that's not possible. I think Fatu would probably benefit most from a win here against Drew, and obviously I'm one of Drew's biggest advocates and fans, but I do think that Jacob Fatu needs that sort of like massive moment for himself. Obviously, he beat LA Knight at WrestleMania last year, so back-to-back wins here on the biggest stage would probably be a great thing for him. I think maybe we could sort of like see him maybe insert himself into the WWE Championship picture if he's allowed to by McIntyre afterwards. So yeah, I do just think that that's probably the best thing for Jacob. I don't know what a loss for Drew would do as to where he would be put on the card. I think we discussed this before. He's one of those guys that can just seemingly take loss after loss, and he sort of sticks around in a similar position as to where he was beforehand. Doesn't really matter too much. So I'd like to think that that can happen again here. He can still stick around the right conversations, but maybe just allowing Jacob just to be elevated a little bit more for the time being. and allowing him to go on to bigger opportunities. That's what I'm hoping for in this one. I'm hoping Jacob Fatu gets the win. I think that would make more sense logically. What about you, Nick? Are you going with Jacob Fatu, or have you got McIntyre?
Well, eventually we'll come to a difference in opinion, but we haven't gotten there yet. I too agree that Jacob Fatu will come out of this one. It just makes most sense. It makes most sense from a business perspective, and that Jacob obviously has very high ceiling that he hasn't reached yet. And win over Drew McIntyre on the grandest stage of them all will absolutely help propel him up to that. And you said it yourself, like Drew McIntyre, for better or worse, no matter how much he wins or loses, he remains around the same spot, and obviously is one of the best workers in WWE. So I think all of that just kind of points to Jacob Fatu winning here. Drew McIntyre, unfortunately, like I said, for better or worse, he is one of those guys too. When he loses, it doesn't really matter. So when you lose to someone like Jacob Fatu, I don't think that hurts him that much. And even if it did, it hadn't stopped him from before. So yeah, I agree with you. It is another one of those rare instances where we would typically always go with Drew, but yeah, Jacob Fatu, I think, just has a bright future, and hasn't yet proved, that he can belong as much as Drew has. So I do think Jacob is the correct choice here. But yeah, really looking forward to this one. I am slightly worried that maybe it doesn't live up to the build, but an unsanctioned match, uh, it'll be interesting to see what all they pull out here. The next contest of the evening, another kind of trickle effect of the Vision's injuries here. Neither of these guys were supposed to face each other, if you believe in all that. What was originally planned, I think Rollins was supposed to be up against Breaker, and Gunther was supposed to go up against Rey Mysterio. Here we are. The build for this one, not great, trying to do, no fault to WWE's obviously, but we did the best with what we could to massive superstars. And I think this match kind of sells itself. Doesn't really need a big build. But in terms of the winner, who you got for this one, KP?
I think you could make a case for both men coming out of this one with a victory, to be fair, because obviously it's been a short build. There's not been too much to it. That you don't really have a lot to really go by. So yeah, there isn't really a whole lot to really just influence a result here. But what I will say is that what I'm sort of leaning towards most out of these two is we do obviously, like you've already mentioned, we do have the injuries of the Vision, Bron Breakker, Bronson Reed, yada yada. Um, I think Bronson, no, Bronson's obviously done and done. He's going to be out for a while, right? That's what we've been told. Bron Breakker apparently, is closer to a return. So I think maybe if we're being sort of optimistic here, we could potentially have the return of Bron Breakker. Maybe sort of a playing on the cards of the masked man stuff that Seth was doing for a long time. And maybe he could sort of do something similar to that one, maybe costing Seth this matchup, providing a distraction for Rollins, and then Gunther capitalizes and maybe gets a victory. I don't think it does any damage to Seth there, taking a loss. And I think it sort of like helps Gunther get a victory because he's already lost, 2 WrestleManias back to back in the recent years. So I think it allows him to get some more prestige on the grander stage. That helps him out. And then obviously, yeah, we do then go into that next step with Seth and Bron Breakker. I think that makes the most sense. Obviously, if Bron isn't back and isn't ready for it, I think you could probably just say either man wins, and no one really minds what happens. But I do think that that's probably the most logical thing. So I'm going to go with Gunther to win, possibly via way of Bron Breakker getting involved and costing Seth. That sets things up nicely afterwards. I think it makes the most sense that way. What about you then, Nick? Who have you got for this one? You got Seth, you got Gunther. Do you see Bron Breakker getting involved? Yeah, what are your thoughts?
I actually think I heard Braun Breaker could have been ready for this, but obviously didn't want to rush things. And when you think about it, if you do put him in here, is it was really helping that much? Yeah, he could have gotten a win over Seth, but the build would have been next to nothing, which you could, of course, argue that's what this has been. But I personally, I think this matchup I would prefer over that one. But bringing him in here, obviously helping Gunther, which it is crazy that he has lost two in a row at Mania. Going into each Mania, he was on this, dominant run. So kind of crazy that he had lost both. But regardless, I think Gunther obviously does need a win on the biggest stage. Rollins, kind of like Drew, it doesn't really matter if he loses. He's still going to be one of the best in the business. And Gunther, not a career killer opportunity, but still nice to get him another win and kind of help him build back up that momentum, because I think WWE needs to kind of focus on him sometimes, even when he's not trying to end the career. Need to And basically just a nice reminder that he still can win matches when a career is not on the line, and you can book him as such because if, that seems to be the only time he gets booked now. So yeah, I think just a win for Gunther here, even clean would be great. But I have no issue with Braun Breaker kind of kickstarting that. Maybe that would be a great opportunity, I think, for Backlash, obviously. So yeah, looking forward to this one. Similar to the last one, I have a lot of high expectations for this one. Definitely polar opposites in terms of builds, but I think this one kind of sells itself. So looking forward to this one. But yeah, I think Gunther is the right choice. The next contest of the evening, for now, has Nia Jax and Lash Legend defending their women's tag team titles, going up against Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, Bayley and Lyra Valkyria, and again, as of now, the Bella Twins in a fatal four-way tag match. KP, any chance the title holders, the Irresistible Forces, retain here?
I would personally say the biggest chance of the Irresistible Forces retaining is if maybe the Bellas aren't involved at all. And the way I say that is because obviously Nikki Bella's been injured for a few weeks now. I feel like they've sort of been really sort of trying their hardest to make sure that Nikki's going to be fit for this matchup, as if like the Bellas are extremely pivotal. I know obviously they're advertised for a matchup, and at the end of the day, if you've got people booked for a contest, you want them all to be involved. But like at the same time, I do get that sort of sense of they are hoping that the Bellas are going to be ready to go, so that they can be the ones to probably win the titles. I have a feeling that's where this one is going, and that's the direction. So if this one is a fatal four-way between these four teams, I will go with Nikki and Brie to win. I think that is where we're going. I don't know. That's just the gut feeling I've got. So I'm gonna go with that one. I think if they're not involved, then I will go with Lash and Nia to retain. But yeah, I do think they're sort of like buying their time and they're really hoping for the best here for the Bellas. So yeah, I'm gonna go with that one. It's a bit of a weird one. Obviously, the feud has been, the build has been a little bit, messed up because of that injury. But what can you do? You got a bad hand, and you just got to go with what you got. So we've already discussed that previously. But yeah, it's just it's an awkward situation. You got to do what you got to do. But I'm going to go with Brie and Nikki to win if this is a fatal four-way, as we have advertised right here on the screen. What about you, Nick? It's a bit of a complicated one, but do you share the same similarities as me? What are you thinking?
Well, you posed a question, what can we do? My suggestion would be we leave the Bellas out of a women's tag team match in 2026. That's just my suggestion on its face. But yeah, unfortunately, them being involved, I get why they're involved because obviously we want to get them the opportunity they never had when they were, around and prominent in their first runs. Um, but yeah, honestly, that they've kind of stopped this whole feud, and we hit this on the build video as well. This was one of the best divisions, if not the best division in WWE at one point. It's definitely kind of slowed down a little bit, unfortunately, because of the Bellas. I think you could argue, and so even if the Bellas are in here, I would prefer Irresistible Forces to retain. Obviously, Alexa and Charlotte have already held those titles not that long ago, but if everyone is here and healthy, I would actually prefer, and I think it makes most sense for Bayley and Lyra because they've been telling that story with them forever, and they kind of started on the Bayley character dynamic with Lyra. But I think they, especially after what happened last year, where Bayley was attacked before their match, anyways, I think it's very full circle to have them win the titles, and I think could play a very interesting dynamic on that. You eventually break that team up, getting back to the Bayley character dynamic, which I thought was very interesting. And then you could kind of have a rivalry between Bayley and Lyra at some point, and maybe put some gold on the line for that as well. I like that. I like that opportunity. Obviously, way down the line, but I think that makes most sense here. Lash and Nia, don't get hurt with the loss here, depending on how you do it, because there's four different teams here, so you don't even have to pin them. You could probably pin the Bellas. You can tell I have a preference there. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Bayley and Lyra to win this one. But I have high hopes for this one. I'm hoping that if the Bellas aren't 100%, they just exclude them because I don't want them to bring down what was a match I was looking forward to quite a bit. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Bayley and Lyra to become our new women's tag team champion. The next contest of the evening has AJ Lee defending her Women's Intercontinental Championship against the man, Becky Lynch. KP, Thoughts on this one?
I think this one's probably one of the most clear-cut ones for me, but I don't know whether it's wishful thinking or if it's just what I want to happen, what I think's going to happen. I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one, but basically, I just want to see Becky Lynch walk out of WrestleMania with that title back on her shoulder. Just the whole AJ Lee stuff has been great. Like, I like AJ, I got nothing against her from a personal standpoint, but just because of what this build has been, it's been so drab and so forgetful almost at times that I do feel like if she's not going to be around, they're not going to be an ever present feature on the shows, then why is she a champion? So it just doesn't really seem to make sense to me. If she's going to come back and be full time, okay, yeah, I'm all for that. That's fine. I don't mind. But we know that we're going to get Becky Lynch every single week if that's something that would happen after this. With her winning the championship, I'm sure she would be a feature, a mainstay on every single Raw. So I personally would prefer that, just to get it off of AJ and to get it back onto Becky, and then we can see it more regularly on a regular basis, and we can sort of like not forget about it. So that would be quite nice. So yeah, I don't know if it's wishful thinking, but I'm gonna go with Becky to win. I think it just makes most sense from a standpoint of wanting to elevate that title back up, because Becky did such a great job, and now we've just sort of like just lost it in the shuffle, and just seems to be a afterthought essentially, which is a shame because this build has been quite horrific. So yeah, it is what it is. But I think, yeah, maybe more hope than anything. I just want Becky to win and just to end this situation and, yeah, just go whatever. Like, I don't mind AJ being around, but maybe don't be a champion if you're not going to be here every single week, because it just devalues the championship for me personally. So yeah, Becky to win. What do you reckon, Nick? I'm assuming you agree. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, of course. Similar vibe that we always have, and kind of continuing off the last match, the part-time status, the bring back a Hall of Famer or close to status just for the pop. And it kind of seems like that's what they did here. Giving her the title because it was a title that wasn't around when she was first around. But I the women's IC title was arguably one of the best titles booking wise in the business. That has taken a pretty steep fall because of AJ's part-time status, and we're not playing any favorites here. We say the same thing on the men's side. Yeah, it really has devalued that title, and still better than the women's United States Championship, because where are they? But yeah, this is basically, you wrapped it up perfectly. Even if bias does come into the decision, which mine did for my last pick, I will admit, even if it still does make sense from a business perspective, I think if you're a fan of wrestling, you have to be a fan of the full-time person holding that belt. In this case, Becky Lynch, who has absolutely carried this entire feud. And unfortunately, AJ Lee, I'm like you said, no issues with her being back, but to be a title holder part time, we're never going to get behind that. So, of course, I would agree with you, Becky Lynch, to regain her Women's Intercontinental Championship here. The next match of the evening, and one of the shortest builds in terms of screen time, but arguably one of the best builds in terms of the level of aggression turned up 1 to 100 for this one. Stephanie Vaquer defending her Women's World Championship against the 2026 Royal Rumble winner, and that of Liv Morgan. KB, what are your thoughts on this one?
You've already touched up on it there. Yeah, I love the intensity that both these ladies have brought, and we mentioned it in the build video. Just the way it's sort of like escalated with each week going into WrestleMania. The closer we get, the higher the stakes get seemingly between these two. This is the match that I'm most looking forward to all weekend, and that's not an exaggeration. I've just loved everything they've been doing, and I can't wait to see who comes out on top, because I genuinely think it could go either way. I don't think there's necessarily a guarantee winner here. I think you can make very good cases for either woman. Stephanie Vaquer's reign has been not quite as good as we would have liked it to have been. I think maybe sort of the prestigeness of the title maybe hasn't been all that there. Like, I love Steph. I think she's fantastic, but just would have liked to have seen her maybe being a bit more heavily featured, maybe more defenses against different people. That would have been quite nice. But yeah, I think, you look at Liv Morgan and, she's looking to get back up to the top of the division. This is arguably the most dangerous Liv Morgan we've probably seen in a very, very long time. So yeah, I think this is going to be a great match. In terms of who I think's going to win, though, that's quite a difficult question. I've had a really big think about this over the past, probably couple of weeks, really, if anything, and just seems to be changing day by day. I think I'm going to go with Liv Morgan to win, but I wouldn't be surprised if this went the other way either. I really think it is literally a 50-50 toss of the coin sort of like either way situation here. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either way whoever walks out with the championship, but I'll go with Liv. I just think that it could just do her the world of favors just winning against someone like Stephanie Vaquer. Maybe Steph can sort of like go back into a chasing situation. Maybe get into a feud with someone else afterwards. I don't know. But yeah, I'd like to see something a little bit different. Maybe going after this one between these two, because I think this is the right part to leave it after they have a hellacious match here, and then to go separate ways and whatever. But yeah, I think Liv, but I really am not confident about that. Nick, have you got any surefire predictions here? Do you think confidently one way or the other, or are you like me and maybe not entirely certain?
This is definitely one of the more difficult matchups of the weekend, and in my opinion as well. I I don't know that I have a surefire answer, but it does feel like Liv is the probably the right choice, and her comeback and her being the most aggressive version of her we've seen. Not that Stephanie Vaquer hasn't been extremely aggressive as well, and as you kind of hit on as well, I would have liked this reign to have meant more or had more time. They're obviously, like I said, they're making the most of it, but it does feel like it's not a super high priority, and I think that's a shame because Vaquer obviously is an extremely valuable talent and should be treated a bit better. Still, again, better than other women that have titles currently in WWE. But yeah, I think this one should have gotten more time, but I do think Liv kind of to complete that kind of comeback. I think getting that world title, I think would look good on her, kind of pat on the back, if you will. I don't obviously this is Vaquer's first title reign, so world title reign. So I don't think it will hurt her in the big picture, and I think she'll obviously have plenty more down the line. So I do think it makes sense to give Liv that moment, give her that world title. I've heard some stuff about Dom like switching sides again, maybe with Vaquer. I don't think that makes a ton of sense for this. It would be kind of out of left field for Vaquer, I think, especially. And now that we've just seen kind of Liv turn on Finn, I think that would be too many turns too quickly for the Judgment Day. We know how long those stories typically take to unfold. So I do think Liv Morgan is the right choice here. Although I don't want her to win, I do think that is where they're probably going to go. The next contest in the main event of WrestleMania Saturday has Randy Orton going up against Cody Rhodes, who is defending his undisputed WWE Championship. We've hit on this one a lot with the build. I think arguably, maybe not arguably, the worst build of the weekend. But in terms of match, KP, how do you think this one's going to go? And who do you have coming out as the undisputed WWE Champion?
Is it bad? The first thing I want to say is I just don't care. It's a really awkward situation. Uh, like you said, the build has been so bad. They've ruined something that could have been really, really good to see. Like Orton and Rhodes, we've discussed this. It writes itself. They got a lot of history, and yet they've gone the way they have. Obviously, we've already been through all this. I'm not going to go into it too deeply. But in terms of the match itself, like I feel like we're going to be having Jelly Roll in the other corner, right? We've got Pat McAfee and Randy, so Jelly's probably going to be accompanying Cody because why not? And yeah, I feel like they'll come to a head and they'll butt heads or whatever, and maybe that'll have an effect on how this match transpires. There's a bit of a caveat here with Pat McAfee as well. He said that if Randy doesn't beat Cody, then he will never be seen in WWE again. And bear in mind, he's just been brought in for this story. I can't see him just, being in for like a few weeks and then just never being seen again if Cody were to win. So for that reason alone, I think they've already told us what's happening here. And I think Randy's going to win number 15, which I'm elated about. I'm glad for Randy, but it's just masked between so much nonsense. That's the problem. So yeah, I'm going to go with Randy wins, but I don't think we're going to enjoy this. I think it's going to be a bit of last year. Like we had Cena and Rhodes, and Cena won his number 17. And obviously we have the Travis Scott stuff. I feel like it's going to be very sort of similar vibes to that one. And we're going to be left with a sour taste after what is a good moment when you sort of unravel all the mess. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit shadowed for sure. Nick, do you agree with me? Do you think Randy's winning number 15? Do you think Cody's got this one? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the build, obviously, we hit on that quite a bit in our If We're Being Honest episode, but it is just truly crazy. You didn't need any of this. You had Randy versus Cody. The story writes itself. Unfortunately for WWE, they felt like, whether it be ticket sales, what have you, they felt like it needed something a bit extra. This is what we got. I assume we'll get something similar than it's like a four-person tag at Backlash or something, or have McAfee going up with Jelly Roll at Backlash. It seems like that's the obvious story. But for this match, I'm hoping it's better than the build, which isn't saying a ton, I realize. But it is kind of crazy that maybe just Cody Rhodes matches, back to back years having outside involvement. I think he doesn't need that either. Like, I think his matches are very good on their own. So I really don't understand the whole point of this. But I'm hoping that the match is better in terms of winner. I don't put a lot of kind of stock in McAfee's statement about he won't be around again, because given his character, why would he tell us the truth? He obviously uh, doesn't have a ton to gain. He's just supporting Randy. Everything Randy's a yes man at this point. Just the opposite way of what we were used to seeing. So now he's a heel. So which doesn't make sense either. But again, getting into the match itself, I do think Randy will end up winning his 15th here, and you said it perfectly. Unfortunately, I think the overall takeaway won't be that. It'll be however they decide to book this match, which I haven't got a clue. Hopefully, it's little involvement, but I just don't see that happening with how the build has been. So keep Cody safe, I suppose. With heel tactics, I guess. Yeah, I unfortunately I think Randy is going to win his 15th. Not unfortunately, but I do think he's going to win it. Unfortunately, I think the way he does it won't be very memorable and won't be fondly looked back upon, is my point there. So I do agree with you, though. I think Randy to win his 15th world title here. I'm looking forward to the match. I think it should be better than the build. I'm hopeful. I'm just still remaining hopeful, I guess, is my point. But yeah, with that, WrestleMania Saturday main event. KP, quickly, what are you thinking in terms of match of the night? One or two matches on here that you think could steal the show, and kind of your feeling on WrestleMania Saturday, and we'll get this one wrapped up.
Well, Fatu and Drew immediately comes to mind. I think it's probably a standout, for possible match of the night, maybe even weekend, just because of how hellacious the build's been, how nuts that match could be as well. So I got a strong feeling about that one. I think it should be really, really good. I'm also very excited for that of Steph and Liv, as I've already glossed over. I think if they get enough time and the sort of like the stage is set for them, I think they can put on an absolute banger too. So I think they're probably my two top matches for this night one. Uh, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they're on the upper echelon of the show. So looking forward to both of those. Looking forward to a couple of the other matches as well. But like I feel like yeah, that main event, it's very pivotal, and it's gonna be a big moment. Do I go to bed afterwards, feeling a little bit miffed, or do I go to bed thinking, actually, you know what, that wasn't too bad. We'll see. We'll see how things go. But as for night one, they're my thoughts. What about you, Nick? What are you most looking forward to? What do you think could steal the show? And yeah, what are your thoughts about this card overall?
Yeah, I think it obviously does have a lot of weight on the main event, as it should. But like last year, we got a really good main event, and then we got a main event that I couldn't have cared less about. Um, Unfortunately, I think both the main events this year aren't super high. I think you mentioned you didn't really care about the main event tonight. I look forward to this main event more than I do tomorrow's. It's a bit of a spoiler there, but in terms of what I am looking most forward to on this card, I think Jacob Drew obviously could be great. I'm personally looking a little bit more forward to Seth versus Gunther. I think that could be a weekend match stealer as well. And then Liv Morgan and Tony Vaquer as well. I think that could be a ton of fun. But yeah, a decent looking card for Saturday for sure. Obviously, a little bit heavier, has 7 of the 13 matches of the weekend. But yeah, looking forward to Saturday. I think it could be a ton of fun. But enough from us over here at The Push. What are you all thinking about WrestleMania Saturday? What are your predictions? We'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Also, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you like this video and or what we're putting out here over here at The Push. We'd love to hear from you. But until next time, this has been The Push with Nick and KB. We'll see you soon. Take care.